A pleasure to meet all at last, and here we are, once again, doing some more films that I certainly should have talked about years ago, or better yet, I finally got around to actually watching certain movies for the very first time. Yeah, there's been a ton of DreamWorks films that I have definitely missed out on over the years, and I really apologize to that, but hopefully I can make up for that. I got a few other unique examples. I've talked about Turbo recently, but let's follow that up with Shark Tale from 2004. Almost a decade prior to this, and this was basically around the height of DreamWorks' success, because they definitely basked with the enormous amounts of cash that they got from Shrek 1, and Shrek 2 pretty much came out a few years later. Nice and timely, if you will. At the same time though, Shrek was already expanding into a lot of merchandising. Clothes, costumes, video games, and there was even a theme park attraction that opened in 2003 at Universal Studios Orlando, which closed not too long ago. So, yet another case where I'm pretty much right there, where the wine is starting to age very finely. But back to Shark Tale though. This came out the same year as Shrek 2, alongside Pixar's The Incredibles, which, as you know, Pixar by this point was basically now owned by Disney, officially. More as a subsidiary and less as a bit of a merged acquisition that Disney made. So, we're pretty thankful for that part, that Disney didn't take the Pixar animations for themselves. It's just more of a collaborative effort. Anyways though, Shark Tale focuses on a fish who washes whales for a living in the same way that we wash cars every day of our life. Just to keep them looking better, and so that way they can flaunt off to people, they can make people smile when they pass by, and these whales themselves, they need a lot of cleaning because they're huge. They can collect a lot of stuff all over their bodies and inside their mouths. So basically speaking, this young fish, played by actor Will Smith, yeah, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. Another moment in 2022 happened with him. Yeah. But anyways, not going to talk about any of that stuff. However, I'd say with how he did in this film, he did alright for what he did, and for what he is as an actor. I personally would recommend the Bad Boys trilogy though, a little bit more than this. Or maybe Spies in Disguise, if you want to really get into it even more. But the thing is, these fish are living in a city that is in constant fear. A mob army of sharks, led by the one and only Robert De Niro, are basically out and about trying to claim this city for themselves. Unfortunately, they can't do so for a number of things. You see, the boss who runs the whale wash actually does a lot of work for the shark and his group, just to try and keep him at bay. But unfortunately, he doesn't necessarily go out too well. That's because, unfortunately, one of his friends, his own employees, Will Smith's character himself, he unfortunately goes and spends $5 grand. $5 grand that was supposed to initially go over to himself. Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty dumb move, but the motive for this was that basically Will Smith thought that one particular seahorse on a racetrack would actually help him to win a load of money, to help save the company from being completely demolished by the shark mafia. So, of course, they try to make sure that it works. And with the two Rastafarian sort of clients that this boss is accompanied with at all times, they basically threaten to put Smith out there in the ocean and potentially leave him for dead if he's not at all good with the money. So he basically slipped up. But they try to use the seahorse as a tactic to try and get back in the game, and also to keep the business from being shut down. So of course, They go ahead and do this, and at first the seahorse itself looked like that it was going to be a success. Unfortunately, a small little error had occurred, and he actually lost. So the thing is, that $5,000 was all for nothing. Not only is this boss puffed up as a pufferfish, but basically tells those two, the Rastafarian dudes, to just go and get Will Smith and put him out there in the middle of the ocean, leave him for dead. But basically what happens is the unthinkable. Two sharks are out and about. One of them is known as Lenny, and Lenny is not like any of the other sharks. He chooses to be a vegan. Yeah, he doesn't even dare go after fish, much less try and find one and say hi to it instead of bite one like any normal shark would out in the ocean. The thing about it though is that Lenny, rather than kill this one fish that's left out there potentially to be eaten alive by anybody at all, actually goes and agrees to help him after his own brother gets crushed by an anchor. Unfortunately, a bit of a problem arises when that does happen. Since his brother was crushed by an anchor, nobody really knew about it. And Lenny actually believes that Will Smith himself is the one who killed him, is the one who killed a shark. And because of this, he actually goes back to the city. He literally steps right into that office and goes as far to tell everybody there, even his own boss, that he killed a shark by himself. And it's hardly ever explained by any means. But the thing is that everybody was suckered into believing him. His whole story and all that, it was a great big lie. And after a lot of time has passed, some disagreements popped up, and plenty of other unique things have shown that money and fame are not everything to you. You might have been somewhat of a bottom feeder, working at a whale wash, but he himself was more than just that. He had a life, a girlfriend, plenty of people to have. He had everything already. But to be called the Shark Killer was a whole different magnitude. Even worse was that Robert De Niro, the leader of the Sharks himself, actually went ahead and believed the story as well. So, you know what that means. Full-on retaliation, ransoms, kidnapping, and tons of other stuff that would have been terrifying in real life. But what happens here is not just any series of events that come up as an act of war between the sharks and the fish, but this is in fact all because one fatal flaw happened. One lie caused an enormous rift, leading everybody to space each other apart even further. Not only to put distance, but also to have even more aggression towards each other. He made both parties feel the exact opposite of what he would have hoped for. He not only gave more courage to fight back for the fish in his own city, but Will Smith himself sure did put up an enormous likelihood that he could get himself killed, along with everybody else. All the sharks out there were not on high alert, they were even worse. So by the end of the movie, what happens is a full-on battle. The confession is made, the lie is lifted, and after a lot of things have gone down, all that happens is that he gets his job back at the whale washing service. His boss forgives him for what happened, and well, that's just the end of it. Shark Tale is, without a doubt, somewhat questionable to say the least. One fish banks off of a huge lie that takes place, all because he wanted to be better than just normal. Better than himself, better than anyone else. One person wanted to have the amount of fame that most celebrities would have every single year. Yet, it was not only a huge failure to himself, but by the time he did tell the truth to people, he made a huge error in his own judgment to begin with. But it only got worse even after he told everybody what had really happened. At the same time though, the Sharks did not hold that much of a grudge after finding out what the truth was. Lenny's brother died from an anchor, not from Will. So there's a huge difference that takes place between both of those things. But in a pinch, both parties eventually agree to hold peace within each other. And as a result, everything's settled, and there's no more hatred for each other out there in the ocean. There could have been a lot of stuff that would have happened if something else would have happened. Chances are, though, who even knows, there's never been a sequel made to this, and I probably wouldn't guarantee that DreamWorks would ever have the authority or the ability to do so. And I do hope that they do, because I really do feel like Shark Tale seems to have some flaws put into it. Sometimes it gets a lot of bad criticism, but maybe not all for the right reasons. I quite liked it for what it was, a tale of fish and sharks battling each other, and eventually a settlement between both parties. All in all, I would pretty much recommend this film at least for one rent's worth of your time. The score on this would probably be only a 7.0 out of 10.1 at most, so to speak. And with that in mind, and everything else all situated, it's time to move on to some other stuff. So make sure that you stick around for more content, and we'll see each other again next time.